Deathworlders don't do small assistance, they send fleets. The Valorians were not warriors. They had never been warriors. Their bodies were thin and light, built for a world where the gravity was gentle and the weather was always kind. Their skin was soft and pale, almost see-through in certain light. Their bones were hollow like birds. A fall that would only bruise a human would shatter a Valorian's arm. For 300 cycles they had survived in the galaxy by one simple rule: stay quiet, stay hidden, do not draw attention. Their planet was small and far from the busy trade routes. They had no valuable minerals. They had no special technology. They were just a peaceful people living peaceful lives on a peaceful world. Most species in the galaxy did not even know they existed, and the Valorians liked it that way. But now everything had changed. Elder Una stood at the top of the council tower looking up at the night sky. The stars had always brought her comfort. They were constant, unchanging, beautiful, but tonight, somewhere among those distant lights, death was coming. The Krell had found them. She had received the report 3 days ago. A Valorian science vessel had detected strange energy signatures at the edge of their system. At first, they thought it was just a passing ship, but then they got closer. They saw the markings on the hull, the blood-red symbol that every species in the galaxy knew and feared. The Krell Dominion. The Krell were conquerors. That was all they did. They moved from system to system, taking what they wanted, destroying what they did not need. They were large and brutal, covered in thick scales that could stop most weapons. Their culture was built on strength. The weak existed only to serve the strong, and if the weak could not serve, they were removed. The science vessel had barely escaped, but they had seen enough. Scout ships, at least 12 of them, and where there were scouts, the main fleet was never far behind. Una closed her eyes. Her people had no military. They had a few patrol ships with basic weapons, but those were meant for asteroid defense, not war. They had no soldiers, no training, no experience in combat. The Valorians had always believed that peace was possible if you simply chose it hard enough. They had been wrong. She turned and walked back into the council chamber. The other 11 elders were already seated around the great circular table. Their faces were pale with fear. Some had been crying. One elder, old Minu, was shaking so badly that he could not hold his water glass. "How long?" asked Elder Sumi. Her voice was barely a whisper. 30 rotations, Una replied. Perhaps less. The scouts were mapping our defenses. They know we are weak. They will not wait long. Silence filled the room. 30 rotations. Less than 1 Earth month. And then the Krell would come with their warships and their soldiers and their hunger for conquest. "We should evacuate," said Elder Hajun. "Take as many people as we can and flee." "Flee where?" Minu replied, his voice cracking. "We have 40 transport ships. Our population is 6 billion. Even if we packed every ship to breaking point, we could save maybe 200,000. "Then we save 200,000, Hajun shouted. "That is better than none." "And how do we choose?" Sumi asked quietly. "Who lives and who dies? Do we draw names from a bowl? Do we take only the young, only the healthy, only the important?" No one had an answer, because there was no good answer. There was no fair way to choose who deserved to survive when a whole species was facing death. Una sat down in her chair. Her body felt heavy despite her light bones. She had led her people for 60 cycles. She had guided them through storms and famines and disease, but she had never faced anything like this. She had no wisdom for war. She had no strategy for survival against an enemy that wanted them dead. "There is one other option," she said slowly. The other elders looked at her. "The humans." The word hung in the air like smoke. Everyone knew about the humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the humans. They were the subject of countless stories, legends, warnings, the species from the death world. Earth the humans called their home planet. It was a nightmare made solid. The gravity was crushing. The temperatures swung from burning hot to freezing cold. The water was filled with salt and poison. The land was covered with predators that killed for food, for territory, for no reason at all. Even the plants were dangerous. Some had thorns, some had poison, some would eat flesh if given the chance. And somehow, impossibly, humans had evolved there. They had survived. They had thrived. They had climbed to the top of the food chain on a world that seemed designed to kill everything that lived on it. When they finally reached the stars, the galaxy was not sure what to make of them. They were smaller than the Krell but far more durable. They could survive injuries that would kill most species. They could adapt to almost any environment. They did not sleep for long, and when they were awake, they were always moving, always building, always improving. But more than their physical abilities, it was their nature that shocked the galaxy. Humans were not conquerors like the Krell. They traded, they explored, they made friends. They seemed genuinely interested in other species, curious about their cultures and histories. They smiled easily and laughed often. Yet when threatened, they transformed. The smiling traders became cold-eyed killers. The curious explorers became tactical geniuses. They fought with a ferocity that even the Krell respected, and they never, ever gave up. Humans had a saying that other species found disturbing: "We do not know how to quit." The problem was, Una had nothing to offer them. The Valorians had no strategic value. They controlled no important trade routes. They had no special resources or technologies. Why would the humans risk anything to help them? "They will not come," Minyu said, echoing her thoughts. "We are nothing to them. We are a small, weak species on a forgotten world. They have no reason to help us." "Perhaps not," Una agreed. "But we have no other choice. We cannot fight, we cannot run. All we can do is ask." She stood up and walked to the communication console at the edge of the room. Her hands were trembling as she activated the emergency beacon. This device was old, installed long ago by a species that no longer existed. It broadcast on a frequency that was monitored by most major powers in the galaxy, including the humans. She took a deep breath and began to record. "This is Elder Una of the Valorian Council. We are a peaceful people. We have no military. We have never harmed anyone. But the Krell Dominion has found us, and they are coming to destroy us." She paused, trying to find the right words. She did not want to sound demanding. She did not want to ask for too much. The humans owed her nothing. She had no right to expect anything. "We do not ask for war on our behalf. We do not ask for your soldiers to die for us. We only ask for advice. Perhaps a small escort to help evacuate our children. Anything you can spare. Anything at all." Her voice broke slightly on the last words. She was not used to begging. Valorians were proud in their own quiet way, but pride meant nothing when your people were about to die. "Please," she whispered, "we have nowhere else to turn." She ended the recording and sent it into the void. The signal would travel at faster-than-light speeds, bouncing through relay stations until it reached human space. If it reached human space, if anyone was listening, if anyone cared. Una turned back to face the council. Their faces held no hope. They had all heard the stories about humans, but they had also heard stories about how the galaxy worked. The strong took from the weak. That was the way of things. Why would humans be any different? "Now we wait," Una said softly. Outside the tower, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere among them, Krell warships were preparing for conquest. And somewhere else, perhaps, a human was listening to the desperate words of a dying people. But probably not. Probably, Una thought, they were already dead. They just did not know it yet. Deathworlders don't do small assistance. They send fleets. The message traveled through space for 3 days. It bounced from relay station to relay station, crossing vast distances that would take normal ships years to travel. It passed through territories belonging to a dozen different species. Most of them ignored it. A distress call from some unknown world was not their concern. They had their own problems to worry about. But eventually, the message reached human space. Lieutenant Hana was working the night shift on the UES Resolve. The Resolve was a heavy cruiser, one of the newer ships in the United Earth Fleet. It was assigned to patrol the outer edges of human territory, watching for pirates, smugglers, and any signs of hostile activity. Most nights were quiet. Hana spent her time monitoring communication channels, reading reports, and drinking too much coffee. She almost missed the signal. It came in on an old frequency that was rarely used anymore, but something made her look twice. Maybe it was the way the voice sounded, small, frightened, hopeful despite everything. She played the message once, then twice, then a third time. We only ask for advice. Perhaps a small escort to help evacuate our children. Anything you can spare. Hana felt something twist in her chest. She had heard distress calls before. Some were fake, tricks used by pirates to lure ships into ambushes. Some were real but too far away to help. But this one felt different. The voice belonged to someone who had already given up hope but was asking anyway. Someone who expected nothing but could not stop themselves from trying. She downloaded the message and walked quickly to the captain's quarters. Captain Woojin was not asleep. He rarely slept well during patrol missions. Too many years of training had made him a light sleeper, always ready for trouble. He was reading a book when Hana knocked on his door. "Lieutenant," he said, looking up, "what is it?" "Sir, we received a distress call. I think you need to hear it." Woojin set down his book and gestured for her to play the message. Hana did. The room was silent as Elder Yuna's voice filled the space. When it ended, Woojin did not speak for a long moment. "Play it again," he said. Hana played it again. Woojin listened with his eyes closed. His face was calm, but Hana had served under him long enough to see the small signs. The tightening around his jaw, the slight tension in his shoulders. He was angry, not at the Valorians, at the situation. "The Krell," he said finally. "How many ships did the report mention?" "At least 12 scouts, sir. But if their main fleet is coming, we could be looking at 50 to 100 warships." "And the Valorians have no military?" "No, sir, patrol ships only. Basic weapons, they are not fighters." Woojin stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, a peaceful species was waiting to die. "Sir," Hana said carefully, "the Valorian system is outside our patrol zone. Command might not authorize a response. And even if they did, what could we do? The Resolve is just one ship, against a full Krell fleet." "Get me Admiral Donghyun," Woojin interrupted. Hana blinked. Admiral Donghyun was the commander of the entire Third Fleet. He was 3 ranks above Woojin. Captains did not simply call admirals in the middle of the night to discuss distress signals from unknown species. "Sir." "Now, Lieutenant." Something in his voice made Hana move without further questions. She returned to the communication center and sent out a priority request. To her surprise, the admiral responded within minutes. The conversation happened in Woojin's private office. Hana was not allowed inside, but she waited outside the door. She could not hear the words, but she could tell from the length of the call that it was serious. 4 minutes, 5, then silence. When Woojin emerged, his face was unreadable. "Lieutenant," he said, "I need you to send messages to the following units: 3rd Fleet, 5th Fleet, 7th Fleet. All available ships are to change course immediately and proceed to the Valorian system at maximum speed." Hana felt her mouth fall open. "Sir, that is over 100 ships." "I know." The Valorians asked for a small escort. Advice. They were very clear that they did not expect. "I know what they asked for." Woojin's voice was quiet but firm. "Contact Commander Tiho. Tell him to prepare the 1st Marine Division for deployment. Full combat readiness. Also contact Specialist Nari. Her medical corps will need to set up field hospitals. We do not know how many civilian casualties we will be dealing with." Hana's head was spinning. This was not a rescue mission anymore. This was a full military operation. The kind of response you would expect for an attack on human colonies, not a distress call from some species they had never even heard of before tonight. "Sir," she said slowly, "permission to speak freely." "Granted." "Why, the Valorians have nothing to offer us. No resources, no strategic value. They admitted it themselves. They said they have nothing. So why are we sending 3 entire fleets to save them?" Wujin looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised her. He smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was sad and tired and very, very old. "Lieutenant, do you know why other species call us Deathworlders?" "Because of Earth, sir. Our planet is more dangerous than most." "Yes, Earth is a harsh world. The gravity crushes. The weather kills. The animals hunt. Even the plants can poison you. For millions of years, our ancestors survived by fighting every single day. They fought animals. They fought nature. They fought each other. They died young and hard, and the ones who survived had children who died young and hard too." He paused, looking out the window again. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Our ancestors realized that they survived better when they worked together. A single human could be killed by a tiger, but 10 humans with spears could kill the tiger instead. A single human could starve in a bad winter, but a tribe that shared food could make it through. "Cooperation," Hana said quietly. "More than that, protection. Our earliest laws, our oldest traditions, they all come back to one idea: protect the weak, help the helpless, because we were all helpless once. Every one of us was a child who could not hunt or fight or survive alone. We only made it because someone protected us." He turned to face her. "The Valorians sent a message into the darkness. They asked for help with nothing to offer in return. They expected nothing. They hoped for almost nothing. They just asked, because they had no other choice. And that matters to us. Lieutenant, that is the only thing that matters to us." His voice hardened. "Any species can help an ally. Any species can protect someone valuable. But helping the helpless, protecting those who cannot protect themselves, that is what makes us human. That is the one thing we got right after all those years of getting everything else wrong." Hana felt something shift in her chest. She had joined the fleet for adventure, for travel, for a career. She had never really thought about what it meant to be human, what it meant to come from Earth. She had taken it for granted. But now, standing in this small office in the middle of deep space, she understood something new. Being a Deathworlder was not just about being tough. It was about knowing what it felt like to be weak and choosing to protect others from that feeling. "Send the messages," Wujin said, "and contact Ambassador Jinho. He needs to be on the first transport to the Valorian system. Someone will have to explain to these people what is about to happen." "What should I tell him?" Wujin smiled again, and this time there was warmth in it. "Tell him to bring his best diplomatic uniform, and tell him to be ready to explain something very important to Elder Yuna." "What is that, sir?" "That when humans hear a cry for help, we do not measure our response. We do not calculate value or cost or benefit. We just answer, with everything we have." Hana nodded and turned to leave, but at the door she stopped. "Sir, what did Admiral Donghyun say when you told him the plan?" Wujin sat back down at his desk and picked up his book again, but he was not really looking at the pages. He was thinking about something far away. He said, "Those poor Valorians have no idea what they have started." And somewhere across the galaxy, 3 fleets began to move. Deathworlders don't do small assistance, they send fleets. Elder Yuna had stopped sleeping. Every night she climbed to the top of the council tower and stared at the sky, watching for the first signs of the Krell fleet. Every morning she returned to the council chamber to listen to reports that grew more frightening by the day. The scouts were still out there, circling like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. 20 days had passed since she sent the distress call. There had been no response, not from the humans, not from anyone. The galaxy had heard her desperate words and decided that the Valorians were not worth saving. She had expected this. She had told herself not to hope, but still, somewhere deep inside, a small part of her had believed that someone would answer, that the universe was not as cold and cruel as it seemed, that being good and peaceful meant something. Now she knew the truth. Being good meant nothing. Being peaceful meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was power, and the Valorians had none. The evacuation had begun 3 days ago. 40 transport ships, filled with children and their parents, had left for the outer colonies. They would hide in the asteroid belts and pray that the Krell did not bother to chase them. It was not much of a plan, but it was all they had. Yuna was standing at her window, watching another transport lift off into the morning sky, when her communication device buzzed. "Elder Yuna," said the voice of a young technician. His name was Jiho, and he worked in the Planetary Defense Center. "We are detecting strange readings at the edge of the system." Her heart froze. The Krell. "No, Elder. The energy signatures are different. They are coming from the opposite direction, and there are many of them." "How many?" There was a long pause. When Jiho spoke again, his voice was shaking. "Elder, I do not know how to explain this. Our sensors are showing over 100 contacts, but that cannot be right. That would be a full invasion fleet," Yuna whispered. She closed her eyes, so this was how it ended. Not one enemy, but two. Perhaps another species had decided to take the Valorian system before the Krell could claim it. Perhaps it was a Krell trick, attacking from 2 directions at once. It did not matter. Either way, her people were finished. "Elder," Jiho said suddenly, "we are receiving a transmission. It is on a human frequency." Yuna's eyes snapped open. "What?" "The signal is identifying itself as the United Earth ship Resolve. They are requesting permission to enter Valorian space." For a moment, Yuna could not speak. Her mind struggled to process the words. The humans. But she had asked for a small escort, a few ships at most. Why were there over 100 contacts on the sensors? "Let them in," she heard herself say. "Let them all in." The next few hours were like a dream. Yuna stood on the landing platform outside the council tower and watched the sky fill with ships. They came in waves, dropping out of faster-than-light travel with flashes of blue light. First came the scouts, small and quick, spreading out to map the system. Then came the destroyers, bristling with weapons. Then the cruisers, massive and powerful. Then the carriers, each one holding dozens of smaller fighter craft. Then the battle cruisers, the largest ships Yuna had ever seen. Their hulls thick with armor, and their weapons arrays glowing with barely contained energy. The Valorian sensors had not been wrong. There were over 100 ships, 147 to be exact. 3 entire human fleets, plus support vessels, medical frigates, and troop transports. The other council members had gathered behind Yuna, staring at the sky with expressions that ranged from shock to disbelief, to something that might have been hope. "This is impossible," Elder Minyu whispered. "We asked for advice. We asked for a small escort. Why would they send?" He trailed off. There were no words for what they were seeing. A single shuttle detached from the fleet and descended toward the landing platform. It was small compared to the warships, but it was still larger than any Valorian vessel. It landed gently, and the door opened. The human who stepped out was tall. That was the first thing Yuna noticed. Tall and broad and solid in a way that made her feel small and fragile. He wore a uniform of dark blue with golden decorations on the shoulders. His face was kind, with warm eyes and a gentle smile, but there was something strong beneath the kindness. Something that had been tested by fire and had not broken. "Elder Yuna?" he asked. His voice was deep but soft. "Yes," she managed to say. "I am Elder Yuna. I am Ambassador Jinho, representing the United Earth Federation." He bowed slightly. I apologize for the delay in our response. Coordinating 3 fleets takes more time than we would have liked. Yuna felt dizzy. 3 fleets. The 3rd Fleet, the 5th Fleet, and the 7th Fleet. 147 ships in total. Commander Tiho is already deploying Marine divisions to establish defensive positions around your major cities. Specialist Nari is setting up medical facilities in case of civilian casualties. And Captain Wujin is positioning our warships to intercept the Krell when they arrive. Ambassador, Yuna said slowly, there must be some mistake. We only asked for advice, a small escort we never expected. I know what you asked for, Jinho said gently. He took a step closer, and Yuna saw that his eyes were not just kind. They were sad. Sad in a way that spoke of long experience with suffering and loss. May I tell you something about humans, Elder? Yuna nodded. Our home world is a dangerous place. The gravity is heavy. The weather is violent. The animals are deadly. For most of our history, survival was never guaranteed. We fought every day just to live. We learned that the universe does not care about kindness or fairness or justice. It simply is, and it will kill you if you let it. He paused, looking up at the sky where human warships now hung like protective shields. But we also learned something else. We learned that we are stronger together. We learned that protecting each other is not weakness. It is the greatest strength there is. And we learned that when someone asks for help, truly asks with nothing to offer in return, there is only one correct response. What response? Yuna asked quietly. Jinho smiled. Everything we have. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She had spent 20 days believing that her people were alone, that the universe had abandoned them, that kindness meant nothing and power was everything. She had been wrong. You came, she whispered. We have nothing to give you. We cannot repay you. We are just a small, weak species on a forgotten world, but you came. Of course we came, Jinho said. He reached out and took her hand. His grip was warm and steady. You asked for help. What kind of people would we be if we ignored that? Behind him, more shuttles were landing. Soldiers in heavy armor were pouring out, setting up equipment, building barricades. Medical teams were unpacking supplies. Engineers were reinforcing buildings. The entire Velorian capital was transforming into a fortress. The Krell will be here in 10 days, Jinho continued. When they arrive, they will find something they did not expect. They will find humans, and they will learn a lesson that many species have learned before them. What lesson? Yuna asked. Jinho's smile faded, replaced by something harder, something that spoke of ancient battles and hard-won victories and a species that had clawed its way out of hell. That when you threaten the people we protect, you threaten us, and we do not lose. Yuna looked at the sky one more time. The stars were still there, but they no longer seemed cold and indifferent. They seemed like points of light in a universe that was vast and strange but not entirely without hope. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for coming. Thank us when it is over, Jinho replied. For now there is work to do. The Krell are coming and we need to be ready. He released her hand and turned to organize his people. Yuna watched him go, still struggling to believe what was happening. 3 fleets, 147 ships, thousands of soldiers and doctors and engineers. All because she had asked for help. All because the humans had heard her. She had called into the darkness expecting silence. Instead, the darkness had answered with fire and steel and the might of a species forged in hardship. The Deathworlders had come. And the Krell had no idea what was waiting for them. Deathworlders don't do small assistance, they send fleets. The Krell arrived on the morning of the 31st day. Their fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, 240 ships arranged in a crescent shape designed to surround and crush any opposition. It was the standard Krell invasion formation, used in 40 successful conquests over the past century. Fleet Commander Grokter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bloody Triumph, and studied the sensor readings with satisfaction. The Valorian system was exactly as the scouts had described. A small planet, rich in biological resources, defended by nothing more than a few outdated patrol ships. This would be an easy victory. His warriors would have the planet secured within a single rotation. Then his sensor officer made a strange noise. "Commander," the officer said, his voice uncertain, "we are detecting additional contacts." "The patrol ships." "No, Commander, these are different. They are positioned between us and the planet. 147 contacts." Grokter felt his scales tighten. 147 ships. That was impossible. The Valorians had no military. They had no allies. Where could such a fleet have come from? "Identify them," he ordered. The sensor officer worked his controls. When he looked up, his face had gone pale. "Commander, they are human ships." The bridge fell silent. Every Krell knew about the humans, the species from the Death World, the warriors who did not know how to surrender. The Krell had never fought the humans directly, but they had heard the stories. Ships destroyed, fleets scattered, species who had thought themselves strong reduced to nothing. Grokter forced himself to remain calm. "How many warships do they have?" "All of them, Commander. All 147 contacts are warships, 3 full fleets." 3 fleets for this worthless planet? Grokter shook his head. "This makes no sense. The Valorians have nothing. Why would the humans risk war with us for nothing?" Before anyone could answer, the communication console crackled to life. A human voice, calm and cold, filled the bridge. "This is Captain Wujin of the United Earth ship Resolve. The Valorian people are under our protection. You will withdraw immediately or you will be destroyed. There will be no negotiation. There will be no second warning." Grokter stared at the console. No negotiation, no discussion, just a flat demand and a threat. The humans were either very confident or very stupid. He looked at the sensor readings again. 240 Krell ships against 147 human ships. The numbers were in his favor. The Krell were the strongest warriors in the sector. They had conquered dozens of species. They did not run from a fight. And yet, something felt wrong. The humans had positioned themselves perfectly, blocking the direct route to the planet. Their formation was tight and disciplined. They showed no signs of fear or hesitation. They were waiting, almost eager for the battle to begin. Grokter thought about what he had heard about humans. They came from a world of crushing gravity and extreme weather. They had evolved fighting predators that would make a Krell warrior hesitate. They had a saying that other species found disturbing: "We do not know how to quit." For a moment, just a moment, he considered withdrawing. The Valorian system was not worth a war with humans. There were other targets, easier targets, species that would not bring such dangerous allies to their defense. But then he looked at his warriors. They were watching him, waiting for his orders. If he retreated now without a fight, he would lose their respect. He would be seen as a coward. In Krell culture, cowardice was worse than death. "All ships," he commanded, "attack formation. We will crush these humans and take the planet. Today, the Krell will show the galaxy that we fear nothing." The fleet surged forward. On the bridge of the Resolve, Captain Wujin watched the Krell ships approaching. His face was calm, but inside, his heart was beating fast. This was the moment he had prepared for his entire career. The moment when training and theory became reality. "Lieutenant Hana," he said quietly, "open a channel to all human ships." "Channel open, sir." Wujin took a breath. "All units, this is Captain Wujin. The Krell have chosen to fight. They believe that their numbers will save them. They believe that their strength will carry them through. They are wrong." He paused, looking out at the enemy fleet growing larger on the viewscreen. "We are humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived because we fought together, protected each other, refused to give up. Today, we fight for the Valorians, a peaceful people who asked for our help. They have nothing to offer us except their trust, and that is enough." His voice hardened. "Show the Krell what it means to threaten those we protect. All ships engage." The battle began. Human ships moved with terrifying precision. They had trained together for years, learning to fight as a single unit. Their weapons were designed for maximum damage, their tactics refined through centuries of warfare on a planet where combat was constant. The Krell were strong, but they fought as individuals. Each captain made his own decisions, seeking personal glory rather than coordinated victory. Against most enemies, this worked. Against humans, it was a disaster. The first wave of Krell ships crashed into the human formation and shattered. Human destroyers worked in pairs, one drawing fire while the other struck from the side. Human cruisers focused their weapons on single targets, overwhelming shields through concentrated firepower. Human carriers launched fighters that swarmed around larger ships, blinding their sensors and disrupting their communications. Commander Tiho led the Marine divisions. His soldiers boarded 3 Krell carriers in the first hour of battle, fighting hand-to-hand in corridors too narrow for the larger aliens to move freely. The Krell were bigger and stronger, but humans were faster and more adaptable. They used every advantage, every trick, every dirty tactic their ancestors had learned fighting predators on Earth. The Krell did not know how to handle enemies who would not stop, enemies who kept fighting even when wounded, enemies who smiled when they were hurt, as if pain was an old friend. By the 3rd hour, the Krell formation had broken. Ships were fleeing in all directions, pursued by human destroyers that showed no mercy. Commander Grokter watched from his flagship as his fleet fell apart around him. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We outnumber them, we are stronger than them. How can we be losing?" His tactical officer shook his head. "Commander, the humans do not fight like any species we have faced before. They coordinate perfectly. They adapt instantly. They do not make the mistakes we expected." "Then we will board their flagship," Grokter decided. "We will kill their captain and end this." He ordered his remaining ships to concentrate on the resolve. Krell boarding pods launched through the battle, aiming for the human cruiser. Some were destroyed by defensive fire, but 3 made it through, crashing into the hull and releasing warriors into the ship. The fighting inside the Resolve was brutal. Krell warriors charged through corridors, their claws and weapons ready, but human Marines were waiting for them. Specialist Nari had set up a medical station near the bridge, treating wounded soldiers and sending them back into battle. The humans fought for every meter, refusing to give ground. Captain Wujin himself joined the defense of the bridge. When a Krell warrior broke through the final barricade, Wujin met him with a plasma rifle and a calm expression. "You should have run," Wujin said quietly. "Krell do not run," the warrior snarled. "Neither do humans." The warrior lunged, Wujin fired. By the 6th hour, it was over. The Krell fleet had been reduced from 240 ships to less than 80. Commander Grokter, his flagship burning around him, sent a surrender signal. "Cease fire," Wujin ordered. "Let them go." The surviving Krell ships limped away into the darkness, carrying stories that would spread across the galaxy. Stories of humans who fought like demons. Humans who protected a species they had never even met. Humans who did not negotiate, did not hesitate, did not know how to lose. On the surface of the Valorian home world, Elder Yuna watched the battle through orbital telescopes. She saw the Krell arrive with their massive fleet. She saw the humans position themselves to block the invasion. She saw the fighting, the explosions, the dancing lights of weapons fire. And then she saw the Krell retreat. Around her, other Valorians were crying and cheering and hugging each other. They had expected death. They had received salvation. The humans had done what they promised. They had protected them. Ambassador Jinho appeared at her side, his uniform dusty from the defensive preparations on the ground. "It is over," he said simply. Yuna looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she asked again, the same question she had asked before. "Why did you risk so much for us?" Jinho smiled tiredly. "Because you asked for help, because you needed us, because protecting the helpless is what makes us who we are." He looked up at the sky, where human ships were slowly returning to formation. "The Krell will tell others about today. They will warn other species not to attack worlds under human protection. And maybe, just maybe, the next time someone weak and peaceful calls for help, more species will answer." Yuna nodded slowly. She understood now. The humans were not just fighting for the Valorians. They were fighting for an idea. The idea that strength should protect weakness. That power should serve those without power. That being good and peaceful should mean something. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for showing us that kindness still exists in this universe." "It always exists," Jinho replied. "Sometimes you just have to look for it in unexpected places." Above them, the stars shone down on a world that had almost died, and had been given a second chance by warriors from a death world who still believed in mercy. Deathworlders don't do small assistance, they send fleets. 3 days had passed since the battle. The Krell were gone, their broken fleet scattered across the sector, their warriors carrying tales of defeat and humiliation. The Valorian system was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not the quiet of fear and waiting, the quiet of peace. Elder Yuna walked through the streets of the capital city, still trying to understand everything that had happened. Human soldiers patrolled the sidewalks, their heavy armor and weapons looking strange against the delicate Valorian architecture. But the people did not fear them. Children followed them around, asking questions about Earth and humans and why they were so big. The soldiers smiled and answered patiently, their fierce faces softening when they talked to the young ones. Specialist Nari had set up a medical center in the central plaza. Valorian doctors watched in amazement as human medics treated injuries with technology far more advanced than anything they had ever seen. One young Valorian boy had broken his arm during the panic before the battle. A human doctor set it and applied a healing agent that would have the bone repaired within days instead of weeks. "Your medicine is remarkable," Elder Sumi told Nari. "We have nothing like this." "Then we will teach you," Nari replied with a warm smile. "Knowledge should be shared. That is how everyone gets stronger together." Engineers were repairing damage to buildings that had been hit by debris during the battle. Some Krell weapons had made it through the human defense, striking the outer parts of the city. The damage was minor, nothing compared to what would have happened if the Krell had won. But the humans treated every broken wall and shattered window as if it was their own home being repaired. Commander Tiho had organized his Marines into work teams. Soldiers who had fought hand-to-hand against Krell warriors just days ago were now carrying building materials and helping elderly Valorians clear rubble from their gardens. It was a strange sight. These were the same humans who had terrified the galaxy's greatest warriors, and here they were, planting flowers and fixing roofs. "I do not understand them," Elder Minyu admitted to Yuna. "One moment they are killing machines, the next moment they are this." He gestured at a human marine who was carefully helping a Valorian child retrieve her lost pet from a damaged building. "Perhaps that is exactly why they are so strong," Yuna replied thoughtfully. "They know when to fight and when to heal. They understand that both are necessary." She continued her walk, eventually reaching the edge of the city where the mountains rose toward the sky. This had always been her favorite place, a quiet spot where she could think and watch the sun set over the peaks. To her surprise, Ambassador Jinho was already there. He was sitting on a stone bench, looking at the mountains with an expression that seemed both peaceful and sad. He did not notice her approach until she was nearly beside him. "Elder Yuna," he said, standing quickly, "I apologize. I did not mean to intrude on your space." "This space belongs to everyone," Yuna replied. "Please sit. I would like to talk if you have time." They sat together on the bench, watching the sun paint the mountains in shades of gold and pink. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was comfortable, the kind of silence between people who have shared something important. "You will be leaving soon," Yuna said finally. It was not a question. "Yes, most of the fleet will depart within the week. We are leaving a small garrison behind, just in case the Krell think about returning. But the immediate threat is over." Yuna nodded slowly. She had known this was coming. The humans had other duties, other responsibilities. They could not stay forever, but part of her had hoped they would. "May I ask you something, Ambassador?" "Of course." "Before you came, I had lost hope. I believed that the galaxy was cold and cruel, that kindness was weakness, that the only thing that mattered was power. Was I wrong?" Jinho thought carefully before answering. "The galaxy is cold and cruel, but it is also warm and kind. Both things are true at the same time. The question is not which one is real. The question is which one you choose to make stronger." "I do not understand." "Every act of cruelty makes the universe a little colder. Every act of kindness makes it a little warmer. The Krell choose cruelty. They spread fear and pain wherever they go. But we choose kindness. We spread protection and hope. And over time, those choices add up." He turned to look at her directly. "You sent a message into the darkness, Elder. You asked for help even though you expected nothing. That took courage. That took hope. And because you made that choice, we heard you. We came. The Krell lost. Your people survived. Do you see? Your kindness, your hope, it made a difference." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes again. She had cried more in the past week than in the past 60 cycles. But these were different tears, not tears of fear or despair, tears of something she had almost forgotten how to feel. "Hope. We owe you everything," she said softly. "Our lives, our future, our world. How can we ever repay such a debt?" "There is no debt," Jinho said firmly. "We did not help you to be repaid. We helped you because it was the right thing to do. But if you want to honor what happened here, there is something you can do." "Anything." "Pass it on. Someday, somewhere in this galaxy, another species will face what you faced. They will be weak and afraid and alone. They will send a message into the darkness asking for help, expecting nothing. When that day comes, answer them. Send whatever you can spare. And tell them what we told you." "What is that?" Jinho smiled. "That they are not alone, that kindness exists, that there are still people in this universe who will stand between the helpless and those who would harm them. That is how we make the galaxy warmer, Elder, one act of kindness at a time." Yuna bowed her head. It was the deepest bow of respect that Valorians knew, reserved for moments of profound gratitude. When she raised her head again, her eyes were clear and determined. "Then let our worlds be joined," she said. "Not as debtor and savior, not as weak and strong, as family, as partners in making this universe a little less cold." Jinho bowed in return. "That is all we ever wanted, Elder. That is all we ever asked for." They sat together in silence as the sun finished its descent. The stars came out one by one, filling the sky with tiny points of light. Somewhere among those stars, the Krell were spreading their stories of defeat. Somewhere else, other species were hearing those stories and wondering if the humans would come for them too, wondering if help was really possible. And somewhere in the depths of space, a signal was traveling, a new message on an old frequency. Not a cry for help this time, a declaration. "This is the Valorian system, speaking on behalf of the United Earth Federation. Any peaceful species in need of assistance, contact us. Help is available. You are not alone." It was a small message, a tiny voice in the vastness of space, but voices have power, and kindness once shared tends to spread. Captain Wujin received the transmission on the bridge of the Resolve as they prepared to depart. Lieutenant Hana played it for him, and for a moment he just listened, a small smile on his face. "Sir," Hana asked, "is everything all right?" "Everything is fine, Lieutenant. Better than fine, actually." He looked out at the stars ahead. "Plot a course for home. Our work here is done." "Yes, sir." Hana paused. "Sir, do you think it made a difference, what we did here?" Wujin nodded slowly. "I think it made all the difference in the world, Lieutenant, maybe in the galaxy." He turned back to his chair. "Let us go home. There will be other calls, other people who need help, and we need to be ready." The human fleet departed the Valorian system in perfect formation, their work complete. Behind them, a small garrison remained, keeping watch. And on the planet below, a species that had almost died was learning to believe in kindness again. Because Deathworlders do not do small assistance. They send fleets. And in doing so, they remind the universe that hope is always worth fighting for.